We're gonna get started. April meeting. Thank you for joining us. So we have a pretty packed agenda, lots of really great speakers here tonight. But before we kick over to that, I'm going to pull out my agenda so I remind myself what I'm talking about. Calling the meeting to order, and just a general reminder of our conduct and our rules. Let's make sure we're staying respectful and asking good questions that elevate the conversation. But thank you all for joining us. Wanted to start by doing a little bit of a petitioning recap since we filed our petitions. I will start by saying a huge thank you to our Joan Millman and Seamus. Really happy to report that we had over 1,800 individual signatures on our IND slate of petitions alone, as well as a couple hundred extra for our other endorsed candidate, Councilwoman Crystal Hudson in the 35th Assembly District. So all told, we're probably over, I don't know, 2,200 maybe more plus and growing. So that's pretty which is really exciting. But most importantly, our judicial candidate.
1801.
1801. Okay. That never most importantly, you signed. Yeah. We were able to not only get our city council people on the ballot, but our incredible judicial candidates as well. Many of them will be stopping by and saying hello tonight, either here or on Zoom. And also, more importantly, we qualified our judicial delegates and our judicial alternates who are running unchallenged and unopposed. It's super exciting. So that means we won't have a crazy long ballot this year. We won't have to flip it over 5 times over and fill in 1,000 individual ballots. So really exciting. And I think it's just a great show of support within the Assembly District. So really big news there. We have one outstanding agenda item from last time, which was we had 3 gift cards for our top 3 petition getters.
Drum roll, please.
Yes, drum roll, please. The third category should get it. Oh, the first number 1 was our TV.
There he is.
Number 2, our Vice President, Hal Friedman. And number 3, the man who is really engaged in our political club, Edgar Weinstock. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all of your hard work. You can really. Over 100? Yeah, I think over 100. They all surpassed well over 100 individual signatures. As did more people in the club, but we can only financially support Starbucks a limited amount. Only 3 gift cards were garnered in this exchange. So thank you. Another important update, we have our new Assembly District maps that are hot off the press today. Yeah, so we'll just show this as an example, but I know a lot of us were involved in the redistricting, and some of us, including Lynn Hill, went to testify before the independent redistricting committee. And so did Art, sorry. Art and Lynn both spoke about keeping the districts intact. And if you'll recall, we made the decision to endorse in the 35th City Council district because we thought under the new maps, we might be getting a whole lot more of that district. You know, I don't know if it's unfortunate or not, but we have only a little bit, only the 6 election districts still in the 35th Assembly District, but we retained all of the southern portion of our district. So really exciting, democracy in action. I truly believe it was Lynn and Art's testimony that got us to the finish line to get this maps. Yes.
Also, many members were able to openly submit their testimony online, electronically, or via email and snail mail. So that made an impact as well.
Yes, exactly.
Run around the gift cards, maybe?
Maybe Starbucks unionizes more and more. Awesome. So that's the new Assembly District map, which you can check out on the available website, or come take a look over here with Joan's Coffee. So that's the old business of the club. And there's one more update to report. So last time we were here in this very room, we heard from the RAP campaign, Release Aging People from Prison campaign, and a lot of us were very inspired. We came together to vote to move for the executive board to create a resolution supporting the two bills that would ultimately hopefully get our Senator Andrew Bernardis on the bill. Happy to report that as of today, he has joined both of the bills.
Oh, great.
Wonderful. Very good, but we do still have a resolution to pass. So I believe it's been sent out through the email, so I would like to move to pass that resolution, which basically urges our state senators and our assembly person and the governor to support the two bills that support the release aging people from prison campaign's goals this year. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, second,
Second.
perfect. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Hearing none. Okay, the motion passes. Big thanks to all who worked on the resolution. We will be sending it along to our state senators.
That was the question, is what do we do?
Yes, I'm sure Seamus has already queued it up to go out to all of our senators, to our two state senators, assembly person, who I think already knows how we feel about this, but good to pass along anyway, and we'll be directing it to the governor as well. So once the bill passes, we'll urge signature and continue supporting. Okay, looking at my thing. Okay, so I believe that's all the old business of the club. Now, today we really packed the club with some really exciting speakers from our own district and some from the south as well. So we will be hearing from three speakers, as well as the chief of staff to our newest congressman, Irene Kelly Southon. Hey, Emily. We're gonna throw it to Sal first. We're gonna throw it to Sal first because he has to go, and then we'll go to you, and then Maya, and then we'll hear from Raul as well. So just stay tuned and switching in. So now, without further ado, happy to introduce Sal Albans, former city councilman from the Final Five.
Thanks, thank you. I apologize about the chair. I'm dealing with the aftermath of hip surgery, so I can't stand for too long, up and down. So it's great to be here. I feel like when back in my alma mater, this feels it's like my contract class. I'm a Brooklyn Law School graduate, so it's an honor to be able to speak to all of you. IMD has a great tradition of reform politics, and Joe Millman, of course, who is a friend. We served there together. She was in the assembly in the city council, and a lot of great folks served as a result of IMD. A great reform platform, starting back, I think, with Eileen Dubin back in the day. Pesci, yes. Michael Pesci, when they took on the Brooklyn organization, which was an amazing feat in those days. It took a lot of guts because the organization is extremely powerful in those days. Those folks, I think it was Pesci, Barbaro, and Joe Ferris, who really battled up in Albany. So sorry about ancient history here going back, but I want to speak to you about this campaign that I and a bunch of people are going to sit involved in, called Final Five. And some folks think it's a basketball tournament, but it's really one of the most dynamic concepts that I've come across. It's part of a national movement. There's a great book by Kathleen Gale and Michael Porter from Harvard called The Politics Industry, which is like a Bible for Final Five. And basically, what we want to do here in New York City is place Final Five on the ballot next year in 2024. And with the way it works is that you have a primary, which is open to all voters and all candidates, regardless of party affiliation. And we have ranked choice voting in New York City right now. I was on the commission. I was on the commissions to pass ranked choice voting, which I really like. However, closed primaries still, in my view, suppress the voter involvement, they suppress competition. And on the commission, I was trying to advance this, not Final Five, but basically nonpartisan elections. That really, we have 1.1 million independents in New York City. It's a growing demographic. I run into people all the time who say, I can't vote in the most important election in the city. I don't want to be affiliated with any party. New York City is, of course, a Democratic city, so there's no doubt that whoever gets, and the way it works is the top 5 in this nonpartisan primary would advance to the general election. And ranked choice voting would then be transferred from the primary to the general election. So at the end of the day, whoever gets elected will have to go on more than 50% of the vote. Instead of, we're electing people in New York City, citywide offices with about 15% of registered voters in the city, because the general election is really non-competitive in New York City, especially on a citywide basis. You saw that Eric Adams going at 70% of all voters in New York City to be elected mayor. Bill de Blasio at 13%. Really no competition in the general election. The Republican Party is basically moribund, with the exception of Staten Island, but most places it's really not. It's really, and I think it hurts the city because competition is healthy, and this will generate competition. At the end of the day, this is about how do we expand democracy and improve our governance. And to me, this is a gold standard. It's not a panacea, but it's an effort to really elect folks who are going to work across the aisle in bipartisan fashion to solve problems instead of pandering to a small slice of the population, which is what's happening across the country. We see that with the MAGA folks being elected. We see what's happening in Washington, where these folks, if they don't toe the line, the hard line that the Republican and Donald Trump are promoting, they're going to lose primaries. So those close primaries are causing us real deep problems across America. It's a great example. Alaska adopted Final Five. And as a result, Sarah Palin lost. Mary Peltola, the first Congresswoman, Democratic Congresswoman, was elected in Alaska. Lisa Murkowski, who voted to impeach Trump, moderate Republican, would have been dead on arrival because there's a Trump-endorsed opponent. She wins because independents and Democrats were able to vote for her. So it definitely is, it really incentivizes folks to work across party lines and to actually reach out to the vast majority of voters rather than a small group of hardcore partisans, because that's what we have in place right now. New York City is a big deal. I mean, I've written 2 op-ed pieces in the Daily News about this. The Daily News has endorsed it in 2 editorials. We started in November of 21, and we've got people across party lines supporting it. We've got Democrat. I'm a Democrat. Our steering committee is made up of 2 Democrats, a Libertarian, a Republican, and we've got folks that are joining our effort across party lines. We filed under the nonpartisan ballot initiative. New York City, as you know, we can do citizens referendum. We can't do that in Albany. Most places they're doing it at the state level. In New York City, we can do it here, but we can't do it at Albany has to do it through legislation. I don't see that happening. I mean, basically across the country, the hierarchy of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party oppose this because it expands the voter base. And I was on radio a couple of weeks ago with Jay Jacobs, the Democratic state chair, and he said, "Sal, it's a great idea, but it would make parties irrelevant," which is not true because you run with party labels. You run as a Democrat, Republican, you run as a Green Party, whatever you want to do. But the bottom line is that they're not irrelevant. They play a huge role and they continue to play a huge role across the country. So we had a disagreement. So I assume at the end of the day, he will be opposed to this. So will be the hierarchy of the party, which Nevada just adopted it. And in Nevada, the Republican and Democrat hierarchy were all opposed to it as well. Individual elected officials have supported it. And for example, on our website, Bobby Carroll, who's the assemblyman from Park Slope, has put out a statement supporting it. It's on our website. We have Professor Haid from NYU. He's on board. The New Leaf Democrats in Queens are supporting it. We have a Republican council member who said he wants to support it. I have to have a conversation with him. So we have people within our group that don't agree on a lot of hot button issues. We don't, I'm sure I disagree with some of the folks on my steering committee on a number of issues. But this is about expanding democracy. It's nonpartisan. And we received a grant from the Institute for Innovative Politics. I'm doing it as a volunteer as the chair. We have 2 staff members that are working to reach out to folks across the city. And we plan on hopefully getting another grant in May from the Institute. Catherine Gale, who's the author of the book that I just mentioned, is the kind of the founding mother of this, and she runs this institute. And they were very helpful in Alaska and Nevada. I was on a Zoom call yesterday with about 50 people across the country, Rhode Island. San Diego is going to place this on a ballot in 2024. So it's a national movement. People are really upset about the polarization that's going on in the country. The close primaries are becoming a major problem. And this is one of the vehicles I think will be very, very helpful. It will be very helpful in expanding democracy in New York City, and what we do here has an impact across the country. Right? As a council member, I can tell you, and Joan can tell you this as well, that New York City is the communication capital of the world, and what we do here has a ripple effect across the country. I've already received calls from the League of Women Voters in Rochester that are interested in this process as well. So this is what the outcome is, that there'll be more bipartisan cooperation, better competition among candidates. I came, as Joan can tell you, I came from the district. I represented the original city council. I was the first Democrat elected there. I was surrounded by Republicans. The general election was a contact sport every year. I was reelected 5 times, and it made me a better legislator. Competition makes you a better legislator. Kept me on my toes. There are folks around the city that never have elections, and basically, I don't think it's healthy. It's not healthy for democracy. It's not healthy for the legislator. And it's not healthy for the citizens of New York City. Final 5 guarantees competition, guarantees other parties, and could have a Green Party candidate to qualify. You could have a Libertarian candidate to qualify. They may not win, but they would generate new ideas that could be adopted by the winner. A losing candidate sometimes, they generate proposals that maybe that will appeal to the folks across the city, but they can't win because of their party affiliation, what have you. But the person who's in charge, the person who's in the lead, wants those number 2 votes, those number 3 votes. So there's no spoiler effect, because you can vote for your preferred candidate. You can rank, and as we did the primary, 1 to 5. At the end of the day, it will produce better governance, more accountability, more problem solving. And I'm a proud Democrat, but I think hardcore partisanship is bad for the country, bad for the city, and this is one of the ways to mitigate that. Our website is final5.nyc. Lots of articles, lots of information on this topic. We're addressing the Ford Foundation on May 15th, and the reason for that is we have 2 professors that will be joining us. We will demonstrate this is also good for people of color, voters of color, and it will be more inclusive. The Ford Foundation, that's their main concern. They like the concept, but they want to know how will it impact new immigrants, voters of color, and what have you. We have a lot of data and information that can certainly address that. We addressed the New York City Partnership, the business community in the city. They're supportive, I think it's one of the ways we can better improve democracy here and across the country. We conducted a poll a very good poll actually, and of 800 New Yorkers, and 78% of New York City residents support open nonpartisan primaries. 58% support Title V. So it's, if you go to our website, you can read the whole poll, and it's very fairly reliable. Our objective is to put this on the ballot in 2024. We think that this charter change will be helpful. Ranked choice voting passed by about 70% of the voters in New York City in 2019. I would have loved to have this on a ballot in 2019, but as I said, I expect opposition from incumbents, most of a number of incumbents and the party bosses, but I'm undeterred by that. So we are going to be talking to your folks as well, Lincoln Wrestler and Andy Bernardis and all the folks and around the city. Yes.
Is this something you're proposing for every election or just for citywide?
City, every election.
In the council district?
Yes, every election.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had trouble hearing everything you were saying. I understand what ranked choice voting is.
Right.
Which just avoids having to vote over and over and over again
Right.
Until you get winners. I do not understand the difference between this and ranked choice voting. I'm sorry.
Ranked choice, this includes ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting will be moved to the general election. The preliminary election involves all of the candidates, no matter what party affiliation, and the final 5 go on to the general election. Like that, that's what happened in Alaska. That's what Nevada just adopted. So that's the way it would work. And ranked choice voting would still be in place, but in the general election. Is that clear?
No,
It's not clear?
no. I'm sorry.
Well, what's the question?
Looks like Greg's explaining it. Julia, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to clarify also, so in the first round, people could only vote for one person. Say there's 20 candidates. Okay. And so, I mean, I guess the concern is like, what if it dilutes the type of people that you want to be, like, if we want really progressive people running, would it possibly dilute that in the?
I don't see how. I mean, basically, if as a progressive candidate or whatever philosophy they have, I don't see how that dilutes it. You still have to vote for that person, right? And you're still capable of voting for that person. And if that person is an attractive candidate, they're going to do very, very well. I mean, in New York City, we had, I think in the last election, 15 candidates running for mayor, I believe. So, the more, I guess, attractive candidates, the more people that can raise more money are going to be people who are going to be in the lead.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that ranked choice voting was trying to outdo some problem that might happen if there's like 20 candidates and people can only vote for one. And so what if that happens here and then you're left with just 5?
Well,
I mean, yeah,
When you don't want 20 people in the general election.
right.
You
No, yeah.
You want your
that's not
top
right.
5. And by the way, we're not reinventing New York. California has top 2, which I don't think is great because it doesn't have as many, you don't have an opportunity to have more diverse candidates and more diverse parties in the final 2. I think it's better than what we have in New York. And in Alaska, it was final 4. The research shows 5 is like the sweet spot in terms of promoting diverse candidates, diverse ideas. As I said, the results in Alaska were very, very encouraging. And they spent a lot of money to get that done. It's $17 million to get it passed there. And as I said, the party hierarchy both parties were against it. I expect the same thing here, but individual candidates, I think, will individual elected officials will support it. We already have a couple.
I had a question about that actually, because I've been a fan of proportional representation, with for a while, whether it be ranked choice voting or other things. But the problem that at least I've heard comes up again and again is not the validity of the kind of, system itself, but rather that in any given change like that, it's like the people who are in power don't want more competition.
Yeah,
Same issue that we had with we're having with small donor public financing in New York as well. So it's heartening to hear that you're saying that people are supportive of it, but I'm wondering how you dealt with that. I mean, people who don't have competition in a
well,
current system.
yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, there's no doubt that incumbents don't like change. And we saw that, as I said, we saw that in Alaska, we saw that in Nevada, we see it in San Diego. But as I pointed out, the average citizen supports it because they understand that it's better for democracy. But I do expect opposition from folks that are in office, absolutely.
How did Alaska and Nevada overcome that?
They just, they just, they ran a great campaign.
Yeah,
They spent $17 million.
yeah.
Spends $1 per voter.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Nevada, they spent 19. And, but everybody, the senators were against it, and the party bosses, but there were, as I said, there were unions that were supportive, some unions were for it, some unions were against it, but the average citizen supported it. And we have, I addressed the Staten Island Democratic Association, which is there is a reform movement on Staten Island. And last week, and they're going to pass a resolution in support of it. And we're going to start listing endorsers on our website. We're talking to not only political clubs, but civic organizations as well. There are a lot of civic groups around the city that we're talking to, and I'm very excited about it. I as I said, I would urge you to read The Politics Industry. We can order it. It's on Kindle by Catherine Gale and Mr. Porter. She was just on Open Mind on PBS 2 weeks ago. Very sharp, very committed. She's out of Wisconsin. Her office, the office is in Chicago, and they've got a lot of resources, a lot of contact. We're reaching out to some heavy donors as well, potential large donors. I don't like meeting with large donors, but you know, there are some large donors who are really interested in democracy. But I'm a big fan of public finance. By the way, I think that we have democracy vouchers. I don't know if you've heard of that. That's a huge.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm a big fan of that. Huge fan.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question.
I'm sorry for ranting.
Okay.
How will you get on the ballot for this primary?
Oh,
Will you be
good
petitioning?
question. Yeah, 60,000, we need 60,000 signatures by next June. That we submit that to the city clerk. The city clerk forwards it to the city council. The city council decides whether they want to advance it to the ballot, which probably won't happen. So what will happen is you have to garner another 30,000 signatures by Labor Day. But it's really 30 and 15, but obviously we'll need 60,000 and 30,000.
But also, if the system passes, and now we have nonpartisan primaries, how will those candidates get on the ballot? Like now you have to petition within your
Right.
party.
Well,
Is it going to be similar?
Yes, similar in terms of still need the signatures, but
But you won't need Democrats or Republicans, any registered
Exactly.
voter can sign.
exactly. you
That's
got
what they
it.
do in
Yeah,
Louisiana.
yeah, you got it.
Isn't that the way they do it in Louisiana?
I think, look,
In Louisiana, from what I gather, in Louisiana, anybody could run in a primary, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or you're Martian, it doesn't matter. And,
well, same thing in California.
and basically, if no one gets 50.1%, then the two top candidates, so it could be like two Democrats going together.
Right,
I think they're also doing the same thing in California.
California,
You know, so you're gonna end up having two Republicans going against each other, two
Right.
independents going at each other.
right. But that's why the final five is a better system, because you'll have more options than the final two. In California, they have the final two. You know, they can do that statewide, obviously. We can't do that statewide in New York. We don't have initiative and referendum at the statewide level, but we do it here in New York City. It's gonna make a huge difference because we are New York City. I'm a little bit jingoistic about it, and what we do here has a ripple effect across the country, so. I'm spending 80% of my time doing this, and it's actually a lot of fun. And I hope you guys consider it sometime.
Definitely. Well, thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you. Sorry for sitting.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is that our members need to learn a little bit more about it. It sounds like we get signed up before we have to sign on.
No, obviously, if you need more information, more feedback, what I'm happy to provide for you. You can also send you the presentation for the Ford Foundation, which is focused on moving immigrants to Clyde. And like we mentioned, we already have a huge Bangladeshi civic group that is they're a new group of city reaching out to the immigrants, and they're already endorsed it as well. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming by. Cool. So, I think we'll learn a little bit more about that topic as the months go on, and then we'll maybe bring it back for an endorsement vote or whatever. We'll deal with it later, as they say. But it was an interesting topic and good to sort of stretch our intellectual muscles. On the screen. Okay, excited to move from one democracy to another. So first wanted to say hi to our candidates. Rena, Betsy, thanks for joining us. Any quick updates from the campaign trail, either of you? Everything's good. Everything's good. Okay. All good. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Before we hand it over to my, thank you. Okay, sorry to make Seamus run around so much, but Haley, if you are with us, hello.
Hello.
On the big screen.
I can't see you all, but I am here.
I think I'm just gonna turn this up over here. Oh.
There you go.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're having some echo, so just gonna figure this out.
Is that better? Can you all hear me? Okay, great. I don't think I can hear you, so apologies. And I can't see you, but I am here and I'm excited to chat with you all. Thank you so much for having me. I don't know if I've had a chance to meet most of you yet, but I am Haley Scott. I'm the Chief of Staff to Congressman Dan Goldman. I want to open this by sending his sincere regrets that he couldn't be there in person tonight and that he hasn't been able to be at the club yet. He is eager to. He is the father of 5, as many of you may know. And so these political club meetings happening right at bedtime is always really, really tricky with the schedule, but we're working on it. And he has committed to me and is eager to be there in person with you all. So just wanted to start by saying that, but thank you for letting me be your proxy today. And apologies if it's a little noisy. I am living the reality of a Chief of Staff in Capitol Hill right now. I am outside of a meeting, an event, I should say, with the letter carriers that I was just speaking at a meeting with some great folks from our district on. And I'm right outside of actually the Postal Museum right by Union Station to orient folks. And stepped outside because even though it's a little loud out here, quieter than inside. So I wanted to jump on really quickly. Apologies for the sirens, of course. I don't you. Wanted to hop on quickly and just say hi. Thank you all so much for your work. Congratulations on great petitioning. It sounds, I heard at the top, it sounds like you've done an amazing job so far. So congrats on that. And congrats on getting your candidates on the ballot. I know firsthand how hard that work is. So thank you all for doing it. It's really important. I wanted to give you a quick update on our first 100 days. We reached the 100 days mark on Monday, which was a little bit delayed because the Republicans couldn't quite figure out how to nominate a speaker. It took them a couple days, but they figured it out and we got sworn in and it's been 100 days. And we've really hit the ground running. I think our top priority has really been getting out into our district and figuring out ways that we can really deliver on the issues both locally that matter to our constituents and also nationally. So there's little we can do legislatively here with a Republican controlled House, but it doesn't mean we won't try. But Dan has really spent a lot of our energy and effort focused on really engaging on issues in our district as a result, because I think we recognize that he has the bully pulpit. He has a strong ability to convene folks and really bring a voice to a lot of local issues that matter. And so that's really been our focus. And I'm hoping a lot of the proof is sort of in the pudding, although it's only been 4 months, so I can't claim too many wins quite yet. But I can say we have been staffing up and hired an incredible team. I hope some of you have had a chance to work with them. We've opened our 2 offices, one in Brooklyn that is in Park Slope. It's on 9th Street between 5th and 6th. The address is 340A 9th Street. Anyone is welcome at any time. I hope you all will join and come stop by. We're actually going to host our first district bagel caucus. I don't know if anyone saw that, but that will be the first week in May, and we'll make sure everyone on this call gets an invite to that. It should be fun at our district office. And our Manhattan office is at 290 Broadway, just north of City Hall. So those 2 are getting up and running. Our district team is comprised of 9 full-time staff who have been doing everything from helping constituents with passports and immigration issues and social security, to really leading and trying to get up to speed on most of the issues, including the BQE and the Gowanus Canal, and the Olympic Terminal, and some of the Brooklyn issues. And then we've had a lot of issues that have sort of come into clarity as priorities for us. I think the migrant crisis and the HERC in our district was not necessarily something that we expected to be spending significant time on, but it has been one of our top priorities, and really working with the entire delegation and even Mayor Adams and the governor on pushing for work authorization visas for asylum seekers and for migrants arriving to our city who deserve to be welcomed and taken care of, and need to work if they want to. And so we're pushing for that right now, as well as fix to our absolutely broken immigration system. We've really been fighting hard to bolster our democracy. I know that's really the purpose of this meeting today. So the first bill we introduced, which I'm really excited about, was the early voting, which seeks to expand access to the ballot, expand early voting, and make inroads in some of the states, especially with those where Republicans have been working hard to dismantle voting rights and to disenfranchise people, to undo a lot of that harm, and make it easier for people to vote and exercise their right to vote, including on college campuses and in rural communities, et cetera. So really, really excited about that work. And we've been, really, really focused, especially given the news in the last couple of weeks on gun violence, and seeing if there isn't something we can do in this partisan environment, something to stop the carnage. It is carnage on our streets, as well as do whatever we possibly can to protect abortion rights, those that still exist, and make sure that we're chipping back away at again the conservative efforts to rip away fundamental rights of women. So those have really been kind of the key issues for us. We're also really, really focused and have been, I think in some ways taking a leading role and pushing back against the sort of Republican overreach and conspiracy theories. We've been working hard on addressing climate change, and especially for our coastal communities. I think we've seen how superstorms are going to impact our district, and we've also seen how resiliency projects in our communities have been somewhat disjointed and not necessarily always with community input. So really fighting to ensure not only that federal dollars are flowing to the communities in most need in New York, but also that our, the local resiliency projects have our input on them, and our input is to ensure that there's cohesion, that there's coordination across agencies, and that we're factoring in, environmental justice and factoring in community concerns as well. So it's a lot. And the last point I'll make, our other priority, and I've listed now 15 priorities. So how could they all be priorities? But they are, is really fighting for our neighbors in public housing. The congressman is leading the emergency rental assistance program and fighting for ERAP to apply to NYCHA residents in the state budget. And we've also been pushing for emergency funding for public housing in the federal budget. So, you know, I think we came into this term really eager to get things done. It has been incredibly frustrating to be down here in many ways because of the poverty. Excuse me, I'm reading poverty now. Because of the, you know, the work that Republicans are doing in the partisanship. And so, you know, we are trying really hard to find ways to have an impact where we can, and have been most inspired by and most excited by the local issues where we think that, you know, we can actually have an impact and we can deliver funding. So that's a little bit about our priorities. Obviously, Dan is freshman. We've sort of been sorting through our mail and sorting through getting our computers up and running, and it's been really kind of a startup environment. But at the same time, I think we've been really able to have an impact in these first 3 months, and we're really excited about it. And I don't want to talk a lot, especially because I'm not the congressman, so I'm not good at giving a stump speech. But I'm eager to hear questions and answer questions. And then I've got to run back into this letter carriers event and greet some folks here. But very excited to be with you all today, and really looking forward to being there in person, hopefully soon.
No?
I unmuted, so.
Okay. Well, thank you, Haley, for coming by. It's so good to hear all your many priorities. And we are definitely excited to have a congressman join us when we go there back in the district. And I think I speak for the whole club when I say we definitely need an invite to the bagel caucus here in the district. We do have the best bagels as it is known. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions for Haley if she gets back to the letter carriers. Anyone want to ask a question? Okay.
Yeah, hi.
Anyone has a question?
Oh, hey.
Good.
Okay, oh, we're on you, yeah. Hi, Haley.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
I just wanted to ask, some other, stuff that we could use help with in the state is getting the congestion pricing, review done quicker. It seems to not be a priority for, the Department of Transportation. And so I was just wondering if, Congressman Goldman, I know you're focused on the DQE, which is a much more local issue, but if congestion pricing comes up in those conversations at all.
Yeah, if I unmute, is it going to echo?
I hear
Just a little bit. So- Perfect. Yes, thank you. You actually preempted. I'll give you guys a little bit of a spoiler alert. Don't tell the press, but we're actually putting out an op-ed tomorrow in the New York Daily News, and we are joint with Congressman Nadler writing a letter to Secretary Buttigieg to speed this up, exactly to your point, and to convey that both the elected officials who represent the entire central business district are 100% supportive of congestion pricing, and we need to get it done. So we will be sending that letter out tomorrow, actually, to the secretary. And Dan has met a couple of times with Buttigieg in this, along with the DQE, and a couple of other Manhattan Side District issues have been his sort of top priority and personal lobbying of the secretary.
You didn't hear.
I can't hear you guys if you're asking me a question.
I think Eileen has a question.
Oh, great.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Chairman. So I know about the position of a congressman is really important to me, and I believe that it's essential that, especially a freshman congressman, be on the ground. And that, be very cognizant of local issues. And I'm a native New Yorker. I've lived in this district over 30 years. I was born in this city. And I have to tell you honestly, what you just described to me is not, as your priorities are not mine. I'm a lifelong Democrat, have voted Democrat my entire life. Not one thing that you mentioned is something that is a priority to me. And I put it in the chat. My priority is poverty in New York City, which is at an all-time high. Homelessness, because of the issues around that the city's real estate market is out of control. Gentrification is out of control. And access to higher education is non-existent for poor children. Access to healthcare is non-existent for people in the middle class. These are issues that I think are very important. And I really, during the campaign, was quite upset by the significance that now Congressman made on Trump. Trump is old news, honestly. And it doesn't help me. It doesn't help my neighbors. It doesn't help us get through the day. So I would urge you just to take a look a little bit more closely of the issues of people like me who may not have a job all the time, who are maybe underemployed, but really need support from government. And I'm not getting it, and I'm not hearing it right now. So I would very much appreciate that be reconsidered.
I really appreciate it. And I hear you. And I think, I take the feedback seriously. And I think we recognize and heard from a lot of people that our campaign is really focused on Trump and Trumpism. And, I'll push back slightly on the fact that he's old news since he is going to be the Republican front runner for the presidency. So, we can't get rid of him yet, unfortunately, but we're trying. But I will note for you, Dan did join the Congressional Dads Caucus, which is a new caucus formed, and the entire issue area of focus is exactly what you're talking about. It's addressing poverty, it's reinstating the child tax credit, it's ensuring that we have affordable childcare or free childcare for folks, and really making the case that it shouldn't just be on moms and women to advocate for issues that are important to families. It's on dads and men too. And so I'm really proud that Dan was a founding member of that caucus, and we are pushing hard on those issues as well, and appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And thank you, Haley, for joining us from DC. And Haley will hopefully be coming to more members, not to out her as an ING constituent, but she does work right off of the bat, so she is squarely in our district. And we can welcome you, and of course, the Congressman back from. So thanks for joining.
I don't want to make it echo, but thank you all so much.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That was great. All right, transition. Next up, so again, the meeting is all about democracy, big and small. So we talked about changing the way that we vote potentially. We talked about updates from Congress, and now we have an author in our midst. I'd like to welcome Maya. Maya. Welcome to our meeting. This is her book. She's a member of ING. She joined us about a year ago now, right? And in that time, she has come out with a whole book. That is so much more than most of us can say. We invited her here to talk through her very cool book, which you all know. Inside those very congressional committees that the Congressman heard from. So I will pass over the floor to our author.
Thank you. Oh, yeah,
I mean, it's
just as a process. To copies, if you're interested, and yeah, it's really great to be, I'm excited to be a member of IND, but it's also great to be able to start sharing my day job work as well. So I'm a political scientist based at the NYU Brown Center for Justice. And I'm talking about my new book. I realized we've been sitting and listening for an hour, so I'm going to try to keep it as brief and relevant as possible.
I might skip over a few slides, but I did want to just set the scene about why congressional committees should matter to us, why it's something that someone will write an entire book about. So we look at Congress today, and I think that it's very clear to us that it is a dysfunctional legislature. But to give some numbers, political scientists measure polarization. We've been measuring it for a while based on voting patterns. And right now we are at Civil War era polarization levels in terms of voting patterns in Congress. Congress today is passing about half as many laws as it was in the 1960s. And members are spending about a third of their time legislating. A lot of reasons for all of those things. So clearly things are not working. Now, why do I argue that committees might be the answer to understanding what's going on? Well, committees are really the way that Congress does its job. So it's a huge organization, and like any other big organization, it has to tackle a lot of issues. And so it needs to delegate, and it really does this through committees. And I'm going to come back to this because committees are really ubiquitous. They're a pretty kind of universal institution. We have them on a local level, we have them on a municipal level, we have them on a state level, on a national level. So I think that some of the lessons that I draw about committees on a national level can also be applied to other systems as well. Because I'm excited to think about that with you all locally. And committees in Congress are where bills take shape. I like to think of them as kind of a legislative concourse leading up to bill passage. And they are importantly one of the only bipartisan institutions in, as I mentioned, a very partisan organization. So members of both parties come together on a regular basis for committee work, to interact, and to sit together in hearings and what have you. So my book peeks under the legislative hood, as it were, and looks at what's going on in Congress, how the legislative process works, what is working, what is not working, and I think most importantly, how we can harness this understanding in order to reform Congress and make it work more effectively. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of my data set because I'm guessing most of you are not political scientists, but if it's of interest, I'm happy to talk about it more. But I built a data set of 1,400 transcripts from about 500 congressional hearings from recent congressional terms. Conducted about 65 interviews. Those interviews included senators, members of Congress, staff of all different varieties, personal staff, committee staff, junior staff, senior staff. And I collected some data about the professional backgrounds of witnesses, which was important as well in terms of understanding who Congress is hearing from. So I'm just gonna a lot of things, yeah, and I'll explain why I have this photo. But there are a lot of things that the book highlights that are working well. I wanted to start off with the optimistic note, but I'm just gonna highlight 3 here. And hopefully whet your appetite to read more. So committee hearings, I argue there's many different kinds of committee hearings. The ones that we see on TV might be the ones that are the most partisan because of course the media tends towards what's most salacious. But there are many different committee hearings that are happening about pretty technical, non-sexy, bipartisan topics. And I have some case studies of these on the book. And on these topics, I argue that there is a different kind of conversation and more space for a spectrum of witnesses. And I measure this, and again, I'm happy to get into how I did that in a kind of large scale way, just in terms of who is at the witness table. The other thing that I highlight is the importance of the relationship between the chair and the ranking member. So I explain a step-by-step process about how committees set up hearings in Congress. And throughout, the book really highlights the centrality of committee leadership. And this is true, I think, in other legislatures as well, including in state legislatures and local spaces, that really the leadership of committees is really important. And in Congress, that means that they choose hearing topics, they hire and fire staff, they decide which witnesses will come to testify together with their staff. So, and I measure this in the book, when they have better relationships with each other, the majority and the minority, sometimes they're more likely to come together and decide on witnesses together. They're more likely to give the minority more than the minimum 1 week's notice. They're more likely to share. This is who I was thinking of inviting. This is who I was thinking of inviting. Perhaps even involve the minority in deciding what kinds of hearings to have. And then this leads to a measurable difference when it comes to the kinds of hearings that are held
and the committee culture at large, because I think that when we think about Congress, there's a tendency, especially when we're looking at what's measurable, to look at the formal rules and the way that things are set up. But what I argue is that when you look actually behind the scenes of what's going on, there's a lot of informal norms and relations that make one committee very, very different from another, because of the way that things actually happen. The other thing that I highlighted is that it matters when in the legislative process you're holding a hearing. So on issues that are not yet colored by partisanship, where you're really just setting the agenda, it's an emerging issue, there is more openness. And this might seem not surprising to you, but I think it's important when we think about when can hearings still make a difference. So I'll give an example. One of the case studies in the book is a genetic engineering hearing in 2015. And how science. Genetic engineering, brand new in 2015. House Science Committee is the committee that will eventually have to oversee and regulate and legislate about this. But first thing, you need to learn what's going on. And it was a issue that was new, it was emerging, and importantly, the witnesses who came to testify were also witnesses who were not associated with previous political administrations. They were not painted by virtue of their kind of public speech on partisan issues. So it was really just a learning exercise. And as learning exercise, this hearings can still be effective for some technical topics. And I argue that the further away you are from a piece of legislation, the further away you are from a vote, actually the more effective hearings can be as a tool for learning. I mean, we should double down then on those hearings that can be tools for learning. And this finally gets me to why I have this photo up. So hearings are an important space for relationship building between members. This photo is of Dick Lugar, who I had a chance to interview for the book before he passed away in 2019. It's him with then Senator Barack Obama. And he credited his friendship with Barack Obama with a joint membership in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And even more importantly than a joint membership in the committee took trips together. It's a committee that does a lot of CODEL, or congressional delegation trips. So they have a lot of chances to form relationships and shared experiences outside of Congress. So committees have that potential. And then more so than even just the committee interaction, the more that you can get out of DC, the more that there are informal roundtables. Or the Agriculture Committee shared with me that they went on a listening tour around America, listening to farmers and their opinions about the 2018 Farm Bill. The more you can do stuff like that and build relationships, the more you can repair some of the trust that is so lacking in DC today. Because, and again, I get into this in the book, and for a lack of time not getting into this now, but members used to live in DC. They used to have a lot more opportunities to interact several decades ago than they do now. So this is not trivial. Of course, it's not going to repair everything, but it's not trivial that this is happening. So that brings me to what isn't working, which is obviously a lot of different things. I'll just highlight a few, and then this time. The book highlights the centrality of the staff throughout the process, and yet Congress today has several thousand fewer staff than it did 2 decades ago. Its staff is overwhelmingly white. 2/3 of senior staff are men. And many staff come from affluent backgrounds as a result of a pipeline that starts out with unpaid internships. About half of staffers today started out as unpaid interns, and who can afford to be unpaid interns? And who does that privilege? That's very clear. So we have insufficient staff and kind of staff that do not have the lived experience to represent the nation. And then that kind of lack of staff skill also exposes staff to lobbyists. So there's not just insufficient staff, but staff are also, the average staff is in their mid-20s. They've held their position for a few years. And they might not have the niche expertise in antitrust law or water policy or whatever it is that the Congress needs to legislate about. It's a lot of specialized topics. And so a story that I tell in the book is an antitrust expert who is normally at the DOJ, who's gone into the Senate Judiciary Committee. He told me that when he reached the Senate Judiciary Committee, the lobbyists didn't know how to handle it. Because they were just interacting with staff that don't know antitrust law. Or at least don't know antitrust law well enough that the lobbyists can't come to them and say, just take my word for it. This is what's going on. And so there's a lot of focus on financial lobbying, but I argue that informational lobbying, as I call it, is also a real threat to Congress. I talked about the media attempting to what's the most salacious
So it's kind of, my chapter on theatrical hearings talks about the hearings that we might be more familiar with. Because those are the hearings that we see on TV. When the media is there, when they are present, when you know that there's gonna be 20 million people tuning in, like the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, then you can understandably, think, what's the best use of my time in the hearing? Getting sound bites, putting on a show. But I argue that we have an overblown perception of how many actual congressional hearings are like that, because those are the only hearings we see on TV. Nonetheless, cameras were introduced into Congress in the 80s. They've been introduced into a lot of other chambers, again, locally and nationally. So they've really changed the incentive structure. And I argue that there's a place to kind of strategically rethink where and when cameras are allowed in these conversations, or at least make more space to interact non-phone cameras. And then there's the flip side of the relationships is equally extremely important. What I heard from staff and members is, committees where the relationship is really broken down, committees that are known to be partisan, either because of the committee leadership relationships or because of the issues that they handle, function completely differently from the committees and the subcommittees that are more bipartisan kind of cultures and relationships. So a few of the reforms, I make the case for a number of reforms in the book, but again, I'll just highlight a few in the interest of time. I think it's clear why I argue that we can invest in staff. As I said, Congress does not have enough staff, does not have enough skilled staff, does not have diverse enough staff. They've made some really interesting reforms recently that have tried to get at this, but there's more work to do. Committees can double down on their potential to create relationships. They can have more field hearings like the agriculture committee did. They can have more co-deals. They can have more bipartisan co-working spaces for staff, bipartisan onboarding for members. A lot of different ways to play around with this. Really interestingly, recently there's been a committee that started to play around even with staggered seating. So normally in hearings, members of one party sit on one side of the room, members of the other party sit on the other side of the room. And so they never really interact with each other. When you stagger seating, then there's a natural human tendency to default to whoever's next to you in main conversation during the meeting. Well, that's going to be a Republican counterpart or a Democratic counterpart. And that's actually changed the nature of some of those hearings. Again, it might seem mundane, but it actually matters. And so small things like that matter. And then I take up the issue in the book of digital hearings during COVID. All of Congress moved online, and now actually it's taken that back. And the fact that witnesses were able to testify online really increased accessibility to testimony to a large swath of witnesses who did not necessarily have access to travel to DC. Congress did not pay for witnesses to travel to DC, and we're in a huge country. And if you don't have a lobbyist paying for you to travel, or you don't have independent wealth, or you're not in DC, then you're not going to have as many opportunities to testify. And indeed, in the 116th Congress, about 50% of the witnesses who testified before the House came from the DC area. And that should not be the case in Congress that represents the entire nation. There's also, I argue, creative ways to play around field hearings. So I take up the issue of kind of hearing format. Again, in the interest of time, we're not going to go into this, but I can talk about why I think this matters for the new speaker and the new Congress. But I just want to end with kind of why I think that this book can matter to folks outside of the congressional nerd crowd that obviously I'm usually ingrained in. As I mentioned, committees are everywhere. They're just a way for legislatures to delegate responsibility. City council has them here, state legislatures have them, and what I've heard anecdotally from folks who are involved here and state level is that they struggle with the same issues. They also struggle with the same exposure to lobbyists as a result of insufficient staff. They also struggle with the same issues as it relates to cameras. They also have to grapple with what Zoom means for the future of committee hearings. So this is really not just about Congress. So I think that it hopefully can tell us something about kind of the structures and the processes of decision making more broadly. So I'm just ending with a plug. I have a few books here if it's of interest. The book is also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, also indie books that is your preference. And there's a discount code if you want to buy it from the publisher, and then that's my
email and my website, if you have any other questions. But of course, I'm also just a member of the club, so I'm also just around. Have to email me if I have to email. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, stay put. I think we probably have a couple of questions. As a lobbyist, I do feel personally victimized by this. Happy to open the floor for questions. Jason.
I just sort of comment, your point about cameras is really good. And it's just an example, I help manage a local agency, our appearances at city council, and we have a very great relationship with our chair. She's always nice, she's always polite. This week, we had a hearing for the first time, we had a whole bunch of cameras in the council chamber the entire time, and she took this random shot of us. And I know it's purely because she just like swiped us for no reason at all, because you know, 7 or 8 cameras. It really presents a paradox, because you may get a better democracy out of not having them there, but it's kind of a tough thing to propose and say, like, take away the cameras, take away our transparency. It's really sort of a thoughtful thing.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. And I think it's, yeah, there's a lot of space for nuance there, as you're saying, because the transparency is really critical to democracy. But on the other hand, and you know, even in Congress, like it's one of the committees that is best known for bipartisanship is the House Intelligence Committee, at least before everything that started going on with Russia. But it's a committee with closed door hearings. And so what I heard from at least one member who I spoke to was there is that, yeah, there's no pressure to put on a show. So maybe, I mean, I've been thinking about this more recently as it relates to the site. Maybe it's just about having spaces with cameras and spaces without cameras. Maybe it's about just creating more spaces without cameras, also with the understanding the public should have access. Yeah, but it's a tough question, and it's really.
Maybe starting with the intelligence committee, how can the dynamic that exists there, or maybe it's just the lack of cameras, how can that grow the other committees, like the sexier ones, where I don't know what else to call them. Right there and you know, make those committees more fun.
Yeah, it's a good question, you know, and this is something that I think relates to kind of the 118th Congress, in order to be room for change. I really think that the chair and the ranking member have a tremendous role to play in setting the tone. They can decide, hey, we're doing staggered seating. There's nothing forcing them to not do that in the committee. They can decide, we're gonna do more field hearings. And we're gonna spend our time, you know, doing more field hearings. And actually, I recently heard that there is a push, at least from some communities, doing more field hearings now. Obviously, the hearing in New York City, the brag is a politicized use of field hearings. But I've made the case that it does not mean that all field hearings are bad. They can be used like any other field hearing in a politicized way. But, you know, there's space, I think, for new committee leaders to set the tone for their committees and to kind of change the way that things are happening on their individual committees. And that's where the power lies, I think, in a system that is currently kind of pretty decentralized in terms of giving committees power to do things. But there's also, for the first time, a centralized push. The House, for the first time in its history, has a centralized HR hub that started just 2 years ago. And has kind of a centralized IT service for the first time in history. So there is also a push beyond committees, but I think committee chairs are key.
So my question is related to cameras, and it's also related to access. So something I have dealt with in voting rights is it's really hard for people to show up to a committee meeting and it's not accessible. They need something to be able, they need transcription. Somebody might need language access. And so I totally understand the idea that people play for committees, but we do absolutely nothing for access for people. And I'm just wondering, is anything improved? I really feel like it's hurting our democracy that people who have physical access and language access needs cannot speak at committee hearings.
No, I completely agree with you, and I don't think enough is happening. There have been some hearings, like the Puerto Rico Status Act They did hearings in Spanish and in English, which is quite rare. There are some committees that have kind of opened up their process, folks can comment online, like the Environmental Justice for All Act did that. But it's not an institutionalized effort. There've also been, so the House started the Select Committee on Modernization of Congress years ago, which is now a permanent subcommittee, which is great. And they took up this issue of access. And they've been wanting to at least make resources more accessible. Like, I'm a scholar who studied Congress, and I found it really hard to get committee transcripts. It should not be that hard. And it's not that hard in other countries. So, you know, I also am a comparativist kind of by training. And an example that I always link to with access in Brazil, people can submit kind of their opinions on the draft piece of legislation in a lot of different ways, including sending in a video of sign language, including calling in by phone if they don't have internet access, and including sending in any comment online because it's a huge country. So this is happening. I don't know why we're not doing more of it, but like I completely agree with you. And at the very least, witnesses should be able to testify without having to make a very expensive trip to DC. So.
Yeah, I guess that was the counter about the cameras, like I can see.
That's why it's so difficult.
Yeah,
I mean, it's different. I mean, that's.
yeah,
Different furnishes, like.
I mean, I know that in New York, like once they're getting rid of, you know, they're making people show up in person. Zoom was great for access, I have to say. And it just, they're going back to the old ways, and I will also just say this in my day job with criminal justice reform. It's impossible to get someone who is incarcerated to be able to testify. And to your point earlier, like they need to hear from people who have lived experience, but all of these systems are not set up that way. And it's just really disheartening, I guess, I'll say in 2020.
We could be learning from Brazil.
Last question?
Yeah, well, as a totally disinterested observer, I think the investing in staff idea sounds.
Great.
Yeah, but seriously, I mean, if Congress is understaffed, I mean, New York is probably one of the most well-invested states in staff, and we're understaffed. So as a comparative this, are there foreign examples of well-staffed legislatures that we can look to as example, or do we have to look back to the Congress of the early decades?
Yeah, I think we can look at both. Like Congress used to have whole support agencies that it doesn't have now, like the Office of Technology and Assessment, which Newt Gingrich defunded in the 90s, that they talk about, but also it's also just what kind of staff we have. So I mentioned like we don't have diverse staff, we don't have skilled staff. Again, it's not about the capability of the staff themselves. They can be great people. I'm not trying to diss them. It's just that they don't have like the specific niche expertise. And other countries have like the UK is doing amazing stuff, like in a lot of different legislative reforms. But they have a whole office of science and technology staffed by science experts. They have a whole institutionalized office of public engagement whose job it is to help committees hear from everyone across the country. They have a database of 15,000 local organizations across the UK that they can draw on to say, I want to meet with the Bangladeshi community in Wales, or with, you know, this different constituency group in, you know, East Anglia. And they have regional centers across the country that Parliament kind of is in touch with. So that's an institutionalized avenue of constituent engagement that we don't have. And another area of expertise, we were experts in civic engagement. Like we don't have anything. We literally just now got a centralized IT, which is crazy for any organization besides the Congress. So I think, you know, there's space to also just look at what kind of staff Congress has. But yeah, and obviously compared to what it was.
That Office of Public Engagement sounds like really fun.
Yeah,
That's
they are
fun. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Monica. Talent within the club. That's so cool. There are a few copies of notes you would like to, I'm sure you'd be willing to sign them if you're interested in that route.
I got mine signed.
All right, well, thank you for sticking around. We have one more speaker lined up again, Democracy Big and Small. This is a very small D democracy push from a member of the club or a former member, a re-engaged member of the club, Raul Rothblatt, who I happened to meet while I was out petitioning
Yep.
on Cadman Plaza. So a happy run-in and the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Raul Rothblatt. I have many connections to the club and its history here. I'm going to try to focus on the history of this neighborhood and its critical importance to the civil rights history of the United States. The heart of the African-American intellectual, religious, cultural, political, so many things were really right in this neighborhood. The focus was going to be on the Sisters in Freedom Monument that we're proposing. So I have some portraits here of some people who should all be household names. Do people know that Ivy Wells lived in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Yeah, so she lived on Gold Street, right near Flatbush. There's a plaque for her, a plaque and a street sign named for her. And she lived here in a very critical period of time, around 1892. So in Memphis, she had a press over there, and a white supremacist mob killed a couple of her best friends. And if she had gone back to Memphis, she would have been lynched herself. So she had to get out of town. She came here because of the amazing network of African-American women who were here to support her, and also some African-American men, including T. Thomas Fortune, a really important journalist who had a paper around here. So they all supported her at this very critical time. And these women here funded her first publication. So they had a fundraiser. It was actually in Manhattan. I have to admit, some of the story does take place in Manhattan. A lot of it was right around here. But this was a very successful fundraiser, and subsequently she lived here. And this, to look back a little bit, these two women, Sarah Smith Garnett and Dr. Susan Smith McKinney, grew up right near here on Pearl Street, what would have been Concord Village. Their father was Sylvanus Smith, the founder of Wheatsville, or one of the founders of Wheatsville. So right here, there's a connection between here and the free Black community in further out. But a lot of the activity was around here, and there's nothing to recognize that really, certainly this family's connection to this neighborhood over here. So 1838, Sylvanus Smith and some other folks founded Weeksville because New York abolished slavery in 1827, but then started to institute new restrictions on African-American suffrage. So this is this thing, like New York has a pretty bad record on a lot of levels. So in order for African-American men to get suffrage, they had to own property rights, which was why they had Wheatsville, where African-Americans could own property. So a generation later, these women started the first Black suffragist club, and that was right around here. So the suffrage movement was also had a lot of very important ties to this neighborhood too. There was actually a musical. Did anybody see this musical, Sucks? So there's a new musical about the suffrage movement. It's actually really quite interesting. Didn't quite get on Broadway yet, but we'll see. A lot of these main suffragists live like right around here, but there's nothing really to recognize. Well, there's starting to be some stuff to recognize the history of these women. So they lived on DeKalb in Fort Greene later in some later years. But and now we have a plaque right next to Tyler Gore Park off of Fulton, because the second largest Black YMCA was right over there. But so this incredibly rich history. So I mentioned that there is not just, so we have religious aspects of it. The Bridge Street Church was right around here on Metrotech, but there's a lot of other churches. The Concord Baptist Church was right around here. the Lincoln settlement. So whether it's a settlement movement around here, the literary societies were also extremely important. And there's even the Brooklyn Eagle was one of the largest circulating papers in the country, virulently racist and white supremacist. One of the we are around here in the heart of also the financial capital of the slave trade. So at the same time, you had these amazing African-American women and men working on promoting literature and suffrage and all these other, and education. We also had really, right down here, these dots around here. One reason we were so rich is we were a major trading partner to the South. So, and there were stories of people trying to liberate themselves, showing up dead, like just feet from over here. Because this was both a financial connection and a center of freedom. And the Brooklyn Eagle was really one example of a great newspaper supporting white supremacy, really quite proudly and quite vocally. So there's so much history here. I could, keep talking. So I've worked on saving 227 Duffield, the stop on the Underground Railroad over here on Duffield between Fulton and Willoughby. Mama Joy, who is the owner of the house, was a dear friend of mine. She fought City Hall and won because they found a connection to her house to the Underground Railroad, the abolitionist movement. So we saved her house. And when we won that fight, the New York City committed $1 million to build a monument to 19th century Brooklyn abolitionist history. And they're building this little park. It was originally called Willoughby Square Park. It was renamed Abolitionist Place Park on Abolitionist Place. And then they took out the word park. So now it's going to be Abolitionist Place on the street named Abolitionist Place. Very confusing, but there was a commitment, financial commitment by New York City to honor this history. The New York City Economic Development Corporation is not following through with that commitment. But we have proposed a monument to these women. So this is Sarah Smith Garnett, co-founder of the first Black Woman Suffrage Club. She was also the first, roughly there was actually, might have been another one before her, first Black woman principal in New York. Right now on Tuesday, the Landmark Preservation Commission is going to quite likely landmark the school on West 17th Street. So an amazing woman. So we want to have a monument to these 5 women. Ida B. Wells, I mentioned. This is first Black woman doctor in New York State, a very well-respected, nationally known figure. Victoria O. Matthews. These were was one of the founders of the club. So here we are, a political club right now. They were the ones who started the club movement for Black women. So a national club movement. We wouldn't have had, the NAACP was an important element of American civil rights history. But before that, we had the Niagara movement. But before that were these women founding these clubs. And Maritza Lyons was also an educator for 50 years in Brooklyn. She was an educator. She taught at Brooklyn Colored School number 2. Her parents, just an amazing educator. And for women of that era, really, you couldn't be elected officials. The highest you could go was to be a principal of the school or a top educator. So we have a monument idea for these women at Abolitionist Place Park. And that's actually what I would like, if I want an action item, I would love the clubs to support this idea at this location. So we've gone back and forth. It's very difficult to deal with the New York City Economic Development Corporation. They do seem open to this idea of having this monument. The proposal that we have is to have a realistic monument that to represent these things. So not an abstraction, not some sort of cloud-shaped thing that represents, but we want something really concrete. I've been in touch, we've gotten support from many elected officials, from a lot of top scholars who have supported this idea, and the family members of the suffragists have also come out in support of our idea. In fact, there's an amazing woman who's Ellen Hawley, who's the great-great-granddaughter, this 91-year-old woman, incredibly articulate, getting up there in age, but really passionate about the idea of a realistic thing, because really we want to have something that can be educational, which is really something that these women value very, very highly. So it's likely that New York City will finish the park right now that they've been building. So this is going to probably happen pretty soon, that they're going to develop, get this put up there. We brought it to the idea of participatory budgeting. So we got it on the map. In the 33rd Council District, it was by far the most popular idea on the map. So of the ideas, it had 126 likes on this map. The next most popular idea had 25. So to give a level of how popular it was. We had a discussion for the participatory budgeting and assembly at Gowanus Houses, I guess they're over that way. Lincoln Wessler's office was like, well, this is really about climate justice. And so I was like, okay, how am I gonna make the argument? So, well, it's really also about social, climate justice and social justice. The downtown Brooklyn rezoning was incredibly, had horrible racist implications for this neighborhood. It really displaced what had been a really important African-American community, immigrant community. I was thinking, like, am I going to be able to make this argument? The people there are like, oh yeah, especially at Gowanus Houses, they're like, we remember Mama Joy. They remember this history very profoundly and very viscerally. So I was very excited to get this on participatory budgeting. It did not get on the map. It was not on the ballot. If anybody voted, it was not. Somehow something happened that it was the most popular idea, well received at the public hearings, but it didn't get on. So we could really get some. I could really get some help to have this on here. So I have tons of resources about this stuff. PS9 in Prospect Heights renamed itself after Sarah Smith Garnett. And I had been the president of the PTO there. And so I came up with a whole book about her, because there's nothing really, no real curriculum based around this. Like, we need to totally transform how we approach the education of this thing. The suffrage movements, getting back to the voting, was bluntly racist in many ways. So Ida B. Wells famously, we just had somebody back in Washington, D.C. There was a march on Washington, D.C. in 1913. They refused Ida B. Wells to march in her state delegation. She had to jump in. It was a national scandal that she marched with white women to support suffrage. So it's a complex story. At the same time, we had some cooperation that people don't realize. So which is north to south. So I'm pointing to Metrotech or Bridge Street Church. So the Black women invited Susan B. Anthony there, who a lot of people say, oh, she had said some pretty racist things. They dealt with that as well. They had a very rich dialogue with her too. So there's so many angles to the story. And I would love to hear what people have to say. So really my main ask is, I would love to get letter of support for the Sisters in Freedom Monument at Abolitionist Place Park. The idea was, again, this is about democracy. We would like to have an open process, to have to people have input on how the artists will be chosen, how it would be built and funded. This should all be, we should express the ideals of democracy, not only in the monument itself, in the space itself, but also in the process that we build in. So.
Are the elected officials talking to EDC?
We've had we're gonna have a meeting with DDC today. I don't have a good relationship with EDC. They seem more amenable when we did have a conversation. And it's been, CB2 has been, not that helpful in this process. But if people have connections with the EDC, it would be great to have more of a connection with them.
I think like if I was doing this, I would have all of the local elected officials write a letter to City
Yeah.
Hall or to EDC.
We've gotten letters from pretty much everybody. We just got a new letter. I had a whole push a couple of years ago and then kind of fell off of it. So we had, Steve Levin and Joanne Simon and Jabari Brisport, and now Senator Bernardes. We had Hakeem Jeffries, and I actually want to talk to Dan Goldman about it. The one person who has not written a letter, Eric Adams, when he was borough president, wrote something. Eric Adams and Jabari Brisport agreeing on something is kind of in a lot of ways.
Administration should be reminded that this is something.
But the one person I'm really having problems with is Lincoln Wrestler. So I don't know.
Is there a competing, proposal or a competing idea?
So the city has an artist that they have chosen. So it was chosen like they didn't really, I don't want to get rid of the modifying words there. This was a backroom process that they chose an artist. They chose somebody who is literally some of the questions that they had were like, what do you feel, what color does abolitionism represent to you? I mean, it really has nothing to do with like this dramatic history there. It's removed it. And so they chose this artist who is completely, I wouldn't even say abstract, it was conceptual. It's going to be words. They were supposed to have community engagement meetings, like that never happened. So they're moving forward with an artist, and I don't want to disparage her. Like, she's allowed to have, I support her voice in this too. So I don't want to make it as an antagonistic thing. And I think part of it was kind of played off that way, that we were just like criticizing this artist being mean to her. She's welcome to have a voice in this, just like everybody else. I think there's room for her and our vision. So, but did that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just curious why Lincoln wouldn't go there. It's sort of what the hold up for something like that. Seems like a good idea. It seems like something most people would support.
Yeah. It's and Lincoln actually he did support it too. Like I probably bugged him a little too much. I gotta say, I bugged him a lot about getting this thing, and I think he got a little tired of me pushing for it. But I would love. I got a little. It seemed like I was not moving forward by asking him again and again.
Carl, specifically, what do you need from us? What would you like us to do?
So a letter of support for Community Board 2 and Lincoln Wrestler, and get it to everybody else too, the borough president, asking for the Sisters in Freedom Monument to these 5 women. There's a petition. So my daughter's Girl Scout troop has a petition. It got like over 5,000 signatures. It has the support of Girl Scouts of New York. We have some like great allies in this. But yeah, more letter of support. And I mean, ultimately, we're that's the main thing, right? And so it's publicly owned space. So the city demolished a Black-owned bookstore, Afrocentric bookstore. It demolished affordable housing, demolished small businesses, and social services building that used to be on this block. So they used eminent domain and are not I think this is a good use of public space. And this is the one spot in public space.
You get us some sort of draft. If you get us a draft, then we can
Yeah.
take a look at it, you know, and then,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the right
you
next
know.
step. It seems like a lot of us are in favor. It's
Right.
just that they-
it's a wonderful thing,
Yeah.
you know.
As individuals, 'cause of
Yeah.
course, I know that's
Yeah,
what-
the petition is ready to go. I can, share that.
Did you have a question or
Oh,
comment?
no, I remember the rally on Duffield.
Oh, yeah.
We were on the block, and I'm so glad we all, saved that. You need this piece of history
Yeah.
that is being demolished. Everywhere, everywhere you look around it, it's just, so I just wanna, I guess, be clarified that what we're talking about Willoughby. And there used to be this piece of like asphalt up there, right? It was like
Yeah.
great grass and
So-
the same spot.
This has been going on. This plan started, so
And so.
Joy Chattel and the other people had eminent domain notices put on their door in 2003. So this has been going, and they demolished the buildings, and then, so part of it is bad management, so they tore down the buildings, and then they put up a little strip there to have,
Like no real trees, no real grass, and then they took it all back, and then there's a big wall and there's construction, so
Yeah.
that's that area where.
It's that area, so it's even, I could dig into the whole thing about the design process, the approval. So originally, the law,
I'm sorry,
what the public, the Public Design Commission approved a plan that would actually, the main feature was going to be an underground parking lot. The little park was supposed to be a little excuse for that parking lot. That's what the Public Design Commission approved. And then they got rid of the underground parking lot, which is a pretty big change. They did really stupid things, like they put a dog run next to 227 Duffield, and on top, there used to be tunnels connecting the buildings. They put a dog run on top of where the tunnels used to be. So on top of where people quite possibly liberated themselves, the Public Design Commission had dogs urinating and defecating there. So they had some pretty bad decision-making processes along the way, and they never really had a full approval of the new version of it. So that little thing, the
Wall,
whole
they
thing.
have the, like, until a decision is made, that's the thing, it's like this big space, it's like, just looks constantly on construction, but like, I don't know what's really happening, it's just this big wall, it's just sitting there, and it interferes in walking, so traffic.
It's,
That's something that has to be done.
yeah, I think things are gonna move pretty quickly in the next couple months. So I think it's been in stasis for decades now. And they were gonna open it, this spring, keeps getting pushed back for decades, but it should be coming pretty soon. And they've been working pretty furiously. So that is probably just a little blip of a memory.
Well, thank you. So it looks like you already dropped the petition language in our chat on Zoom, and we'll make sure to get it out as a follow-up note. So thank you so much, and thank you for bringing these portraits.
And if if you have any schools that want this, like, any connections, there's so much there, I'd be glad to thank. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, welcome back anytime. All right, so that was our little tour through democracy, big and small. Just a little note. We did invite our two senators to come by to give us an update about the budget. There is no update. That's fair. Hopefully we'll get a full rundown next time. Thank you to our candidates who came today. And I believe that wraps our meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
As we discussed yesterday,
Yeah.
I got a thing from the AARP.
We don't have a ton of time for that, but can we put a pin in that for next meeting? The AARP?
They're running out of time.
Yeah.
We also don't have any elected officials.
Yeah, we don't have any elected officials, but. Okay, yes, go ahead.
So just because of the rules for judges, this is the last meeting.
Oh.
So I just want to say how much I love you. Obviously, well, yeah, we'll just kind of.
Well, I love you, Bob.
Hey. The last time I can be here and know, it's the. So I'd love to- I understand the rule, but it's a genuine bummer.
Okay, okay, so, yes,
It only needs 5 minutes,
okay,
so I would like to have, present these, we can work on it next month, but people should be aware.
Danielle needs to be the time.
we'll give you just a quick overview, and then we'll throw it to Joanne for, because we have to leave at,
Ira, how would you come up front?
at
Listen.
nine. Yeah,
What it
Come on up
ba-
front.
Okay, what it basically is, I gotta think from the ARP that the New York State Public Service Commission is in cahoots with Con Ed to raise the electric rates by 25%. Now, I showed it to Hal and it's amazing, and I want to know what's being done in Albany or what can we do to stop this thing, because at 25%, you're gonna bankrupt a lot of people in the city. Think of all the people who are lower middle income, how are they gonna pay their electric bills, pay their rent and pay for food? And I think something has to be done. I think we got to either take the lead or we got to get the people in Albany and say, hey, you've got to stop this thing now.
nice, thank you. So like I told Ira and Hal this, it's not an issue I'm not familiar with, but maybe our elected officials know a thing or two about it.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, sorry.
It's those people in Albany. They don't know anything. Hi, Joan. So yes, actually, many of us are aware of the Public Service Commission, the request that the Con Ed and National Grid also has a request to raise the rates. And so the Public Service Commission makes that decision. I have written to them and submitted testimony at various times for other rate hikes. I've worked a lot with the PULP, which is the Public Utility Law Project, which is in Albany. And actually the executive director used to work for Jim Brennan. We know her. She worked with the other assembly members in the past, and she's there. And so we've been working with them, and the problem is, of course, it's a commission. They don't respond, they don't answer to us, right? So we've made these points, and one of the issues that I've raised repeatedly, and I have in budget hearings and whatnot, is the fact that, the Gowanus cleanup is going to be passed on to the ratepayers. So, but it's also true that, well, who else is going to get one, right? This is what happens when you have for-profit utilities. So that's one of the reasons that I support giving the New York Power Authority and having public power, right? Because there's this profit motive, and they're doing very well. But they're always asking for rate hikes, and that's a real problem. So many of us are onto this and are trying to push back. There is this, as far as I've heard, there isn't a decision on that recent request. Of course, that can be appealed, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see. But there's been a big issue with Central Hudson, which has been a real problem in the Hudson Valley. And they seem to be sort of melting down. And the guy who was in charge there left. And now they're trying to sort of straighten themselves out, because they were sending out bizarre bills. You pay your bill, then they'd send you another bill for $900, and it would include the last 6 months worth of bills, but they didn't tell you that kind of thing. And it's very confusing and upsetting. So they're working those things out. So we will find out more as we go along. Right now, as you can imagine, all of our time and effort has been focused on getting a budget, which we don't yet have, but we did pass another extender for Monday. So I know where I'll be on Monday. So we start session early on Monday, and then we hope to, we'll pass the extender, and then we hope to vote on the maps that came out today. And the maps look to me to be substantially the same, if not exactly the same. And from what I could tell, most people around the state were testifying to just leave them alone, right? The maps that they had were good. And that they'd already been vetted. And there had also already been testimony about what, you know, the core of the community and the community concerns and the communities of interest and whatnot. And I think the other thing that we did, and the speaker, you know, is gets all the credit for this, is that he actually worked with the Republicans in that process because the maps that we got, the two sets of maps were possible to deal with. And so the legislature does have the authority under both the US Constitution as well as the law to draw the maps. When we were not given a set of maps to do that. And so the commission, you know, tied everybody's hands behind their backs. And you know what happened when the congressional and the Senate lines were challenged. But the assembly lines were not challenged. And so we went back and had to look at them again because somebody sued in another court. And but the lines were good. And the Republicans had actually submitted papers to the court supporting them. So wherever they went around the state, I did not read every single comment to everybody's lines, but around the state, I'm pretty sure that the hearings were on both sides of the aisle, people in districts that were represented by Republicans and people in districts represented by Democrats were happy with the lines and had already been through that process. And so there was no real opposition from what I could tell to the lines for 2022. And so it looks like they pretty much approved with maybe some minor variations in some places, the maps as they were. So that was just good to know that I don't have to change everything I'm doing. It also means that if they are essentially the same, we don't have to redraw every election district in the state, which is a consequence of an assembly map change. It's not a consequence of a Senate or a congressional map change, but of an assembly map change. So that's good. That's a lot cheaper. The Board of Elections doesn't have to go through that process. It's a lot less confusing for us as we go forward next year, doing county committee and whatnot. And so I'm glad to see that that's happening. And so I think we will probably take a vote on that on Monday, but we'll see. And then we'll conference. And I don't know what the budget has. There are things that we thought were in the budget that turned out not to be. There are things that we didn't think might be in there that might be in there. There have been a couple of issues, as you know, if you're reading the paper, that were policy issues, really not budget issues, but policy issues that have really been the barrier to getting through to being able to discuss more of the budget, right? And that's been the issue of bail and discovery and the housing compact, which also is really a big budget issue. So I think everybody's going to be unhappy. I don't know anybody who's happy with what is likely to be the scenario unless there's some major change. But the bill drafters haven't even started writing the bills. So there's no bills in print. So I expect that once they're in print, that we'll have a message of necessity just to get it done rather than wait the 3 days and come back and vote the following week on the budget. If we have agreement this week, but we haven't conferenced a lot of the parts of the budget and the speaker won't agree to anything without having conference with the conference. So I don't know. I ran into a Republican colleague who stays at the same hotel. We were chatting this morning and he said, "So when do you think this will be?" And he said, "I don't see us being able to pass it on Monday." And I said, "Well, if you guys don't have to, debate everything, we could be out of here a lot quicker." And he laughed. But this is their thing, so that they're entitled to debate the budget and ask questions, and they do. And so I don't see us ever passing the final budget with less than a day and a half to debate. And clearly it could be more and has been more at other times. Really depends on how tired everybody is and whether we're going through the night or not. But so I don't really have anything great to report. I think that on a lot of the budget items that will be okay. I think there's a lot of the money issues that we'll be able to work out. There's been a lot of just being dragged down by policy, which is why the Assembly doesn't put policy in our one house budget. The Senate does, they put in some stuff, but because we really believe that the budget should be. and not about policy. And, you know, but the Senate didn't do that to a lot of things, but they did have some stuff in there that, you know, I didn't disagree with necessarily, but you wouldn't have found it in the Assembly's budget because we kept as much policy out as possible. And that's just a principle. And it doesn't have meaning beyond that. Doesn't mean we don't like what they said or something else. You know, you might like it a lot and say, well, let's pass it as a one house, as you know, a standalone bill. We can get past both houses. What do we need to put it in the budget? Right? If it doesn't really have a budget implications. So we'll see.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Considering today is 4/20, is there any status on Senator Gunars's bill to designate today as New York State Constitution Day? Yeah, 'cause I know it passed. I'm wondering about the Assembly.
The Assembly, I don't even know that we took it up.
Yeah, me too.
Get your minds out of the gutter. What? Nope.
It's the anniversary of something.
My grandma would have been 112.
Very nice. I think the key there is would have been, so.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get cake.
Great, well, thank you, Jen. Just before we walked in, I said our electeds were not here because they were gonna give updates on the budget, but there was no budget and we didn't, so. But no update.
So I had an update on no budget.
That's it.
I will say one other thing. This is just a community thing, but now that I have the Gowanus Canal back again in Carroll Garden and Gowanus, somebody came up to me. There was a big DEC meeting, community availability that they were doing tonight. And they really have not been as present as we would have liked. And I've been like counting them for years about being more present because people get confused. You know, there's the EPA, there's DEC, the information they share is often very hard to understand and read because it's very, you know, wonky and legalistic and whatnot. They did a flyer at one point and it was 4 pages. I'm like, it's not a flyer, it's 4 pages. Put a balloon and put like meeting coming, that kind of thing. But anyway, so they did this big community availability, which the community's been looking forward to. And so there were a lot of people there. I went there before I came here. I mean, I was late for that too, but I went there before here and talked to a number of people. And one person came up to me and said, "Oh, boy, you're lucky that was in the Gowanus Canal." And I said, "Actually, I got it back." And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But a lot of other people came up to me saying, "Oh, we're so glad that we didn't lose you." And there were a lot of people in Carroll Gardens and Gowanus that submitted comments because they really, they would have been cut off from each other, right? And there's a very cohesive whole in that area that's been core to the 52nd. And I want to thank, you know, Lynn and Art who came to the hearing and testified, and anybody else who submitted comments in support of retaining as much as possible of the lines that represent the community. Because apparently you were not alone. That happened, I think, in a lot of places. But so I'm very grateful to everybody who participated in whatever way you did. But thank you. And the Gowanus Canal is still flooded. The uplands are still brownfields for the most part. They are adding new sites to the brownfields program. Whenever a developer decides they want to build something, they go in and they do the testing, and then depending on what the results are, that that property may be eligible for the brownfield program. And DEC works closely with them to make sure that they remediate it and they remediate it properly, and that there's ongoing monitoring. That's part of the brownfields program. So I'm looking forward to, there was just a big issue with a particular property there that made the news. And I think they were already talking about being more present, but I think because of that as well, you know, I think we'll see them much more involved in what's going on in this area, which is a good thing. So I'm pleased that they had this meeting, and I'm pleased that they look to be continuing to to work with us more closely, and that'll be a good thing for everyone. Except for the rate players.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Adjourn.
Yes.
Can I
Aye.
vote?